On March the 25th, 2021, police were alerted to Kent Street in East London. This was the address of Phyllis Grant, the grandmother of Donovan Miller, who was the one who called police. He said, "I have killed my grandmother and I had sex with the corpse." Donovan Miller was 31 years old and he was the primary carer of his grandmother. You see, Donovan was quite the troubled man. In his bedroom, police found his notebook. This notebook, it was labeled, "It's time to go." There were references to Jesus, a cult, a child sex ring, and kidnapping children inside this notebook. Miller described himself as an alien and said he will leave this life to go back home soon. It was said Donovan had been suffering from paranoid schizophrenia, and blood tests revealed that at the time of the murder, he had been using cocaine. So when the police asked him, "Why did you do this?" Donovan said him and his grandma had a disagreement. He strangled her for a while and then had to use a vase to knock her unconscious. He claimed he hit her a few times on the head. When asked what had brought this on, he said, "I'm just going to say the truth. I've come a long way on my journey and enough is enough." And I think here he's referring to demons in his mind. I mean, just have a look at his notebook. Number one, he mentions Jesus. You see, in certain quarters, it is often said that a person experiencing the first stages of serious schizophrenia is more likely to go see a priest than a psychiatrist. And this is because a large proportion of those that suffer from paranoid schizophrenia, they normally have some kind of religious delusions. What they are experiencing, what they are seeing, is religious content. Sufferers may believe that they are a saint, a prophet, a god himself, which is more common in men, or in women that they are a saint or are pregnant with the Messiah. In fact, sometimes someone experiencing this feeling may believe that they are suffering or they're being punished for some kind of sin they committed earlier on in their lives. And this is where the cult and the child sex ring comes in. I'm assuming these were all delusions, but follow the pattern. He's thinking of sin, he tries to remember God, perhaps he's trying to repent. Maybe he has a memory of abusing or being abused and he can't work out what's in his head. Religious delusions may be difficult to distinguish, and diagnosis often depends on a complete knowledge of the person's previous religious history. Unfortunately, the British courts release bugger all, so I couldn't get a hold of his psych reports. See, here in America, I would have had his psych reports and gone through it with you because everything is open to the public. In England, not so much. Interestingly, however, it is said that schizophrenia is predominantly, but not exclusively, a condition of young people, with 3/4 of all diagnoses being made between the ages of 16 and 25. That's because 16 to 25 is generally the age where you start to think for yourself. You start to think about the world. Who am I? Where am I from? Whose am I? Why am I here? These are just normal questions when you start to become more and more curious about life. It's also the time when a person is extremely vulnerable to deluded thinking on this issue. Though Donovan was above the 25 threshold, he still was quite young. In addition, religious delusions and hallucinations can give rise to disturbed behavior that can sometimes be dangerous to both the sufferer and those around them. The reason why I'm talking about this from a religious angle, and of course I'm purely guessing, I'm just looking at the police reports that they released to the media, but when you talk about the time has come, I'm gonna go away, perhaps I'm an alien, when you talk about Jesus, these are all stories, ideas, concepts, thoughts that are rooted in religion. So this isn't, I'm not saying this is because of religion, I'm just saying perhaps Donovan was trying to figure something out in his head. Maybe he was feeling something where he did not feel worthy, or he was feeling punished, and maybe he did try to turn to God, or he got confused or something, but there was certainly something religious about what was going on in his head. You see, in 1843, at the age of 26, the noted English artist Richard Dad killed his father, believing that his father was the devil and that he had been called upon by God to do battle with the forces of evil. Now, this is just a random story confirming that Donovan was suffering and others do suffer for it, but it seems we all failed him. Hear me out. You see, Donovan, he pled guilty to manslaughter and is currently being held in a medical facility. But what is the actual story? What's the reason for the problem? And I think I got it figured out. Was he crazy? No. Was he a madman? No. I mean, yes, he was. But then that would just be like when people say you're crazy or when people say you're mad, you know what you're actually doing? What you're saying is, you know what? I don't want to deal with it. Get out of my face. Right? I think his biggest problem was that he was alone. Nobody made him feel special. I'm not sympathizing with him. I'm not justifying what he did. But I genuinely believe long before COVID, long before the war in Iraq, long before the war in Afghanistan and the war on terror and the financial crisis in 2008 and every other major incident we're seeing in the world right now or in the last 20 years, there's been a long running pandemic that I think is running through everyone and why the world is suffering from an opioid crisis, and that is the disease of loneliness. Unfortunately, however, his grandma paid the ultimate price for his behavior, and no, I am not absolving him from the murder, and I'd agree perhaps he could be in this treatment facility for 2 decades at a minimum, but surely, as a society and as people, we can do more to help those who seemingly cannot help themselves. In terms of the trial itself, Donovan was found not guilty by reason of insanity. They don't have that in England though. In England, the judge just orders the individual, if they're found to be insane, he orders the individual to be at a secure specialist medical facility indefinitely. So who knows if we'll ever see Donovan again, but comment, tell me what you guys think.